Welcome back. There are reports that Iran may have had a role in helping Hamas plan these attacks, which comes as no surprise considering they view Israel as a sworn enemy. And what are your thoughts about Iran's involvement, Amos, and also the danger of this becoming a conflict for the whole region?
So the notion of Iranian involvement with Hamas is something that I dealt with serving as the JAG for the Israeli Navy back in the late 1990s, when the Korean A, which was a ship that came from Iran to Gaza with an extraordinary amount of weapons and being shipped to Hamas. It was clear to us that that was an Iranian-led operation. And since then, it's been clear that Iran has been involved, whether with Hamas and with Hezbollah. I think both Hezbollah more is a proxy than Hamas. It's a more complicated relationship between Hamas and Iran, but the relationship between Hezbollah and Iran is very clear. I think that the reason that President Biden sent the Sixth Fleet here to the Mediterranean is, I think, twofold. One is to send a clear message to Iran not to turn this into a broader conflict. And three, perhaps to reassure us as Israelis, though I'm not quite sure that we need to be reassured. But I think the more important message is to Iran. But that also gets into the broader picture of this triangular relationship, nascent relationship between Saudi Arabia, Israel, and America, which obviously is intended to keep the Iranians at bay. And there are those who are suggesting there may be some credibility to this, that the importance from Iran in terms of Hamas's action is to send a message to Saudi Arabia that there are limits to how much the Iranians are going to tolerate Saudi involvement with America and Israel. I don't think anybody is interested in a broader conflict, whether it's in the northern border with Lebanon or obviously Iran. I think also we need to look at a map of the Middle East and we'll see that Jordan obviously is sitting this one out for all the obvious reasons. The Syrians, I think, are not in a position to be involved. The Egyptians, I think, are interested in trying to be some kind of a mediator. The Turks' role, I can never figure Erdogan out one way or the other. And I think in that sense, that at the moment, as far as I can tell, this will stay regional. And I think we also need to add, again, those of us who live here, this isn't going to be what we call in Hebrew a bang and gamarnu, which means, hit over the head and finish it. This is going to be long-term. Long-term has consequences, both obviously for the Gazans and also clearly for us Israelis, because there are 360,000 Israelis who have been called up for reserve duty. I also need to add that the turn-up rate is over 100% because people are volunteering. And I want to add one other point, that with all due respect to a couple of your guests, the unity which we see now, it reflects one thing and one thing only. We understand the government has abandoned us. The government has utterly and totally failed. The state organs have collapsed. The volunteerism that is here in Israel at the moment is extraordinary. There are no words for the spirit that has engulfed us. It's remarkable. But we're doing things. I'm volunteering. I'm just a regular guy volunteering. I'm involved in stuff the state should be doing, but the state has collapsed. I think when this is all over and what we call the day after, the Netanyahu government is going to have to, quote unquote, stand trial for what it has done. And then we can go back to the judicial reform, which I've been very involved in opposing. I've written about it, participated in all the demonstrations along with 400,000 other Israelis every Saturday night. So there's now a hiatus in that. When this madness ends, we need to go back to that, because any efforts to destroy democracy, which Netanyahu seeks to do, we can't tolerate that here. And we are clearly paying the price for Netanyahu's focus on destroying democracy rather than focusing on security issues, for all of his bluster and all of his endless gratuitous rhetoric. On the other hand, and I say this respectfully and painfully, count to three, 1, 2, 3, when you go into a ground incursion with how many ever hostages are being held, I say this respectfully, deliberately, and painfully. I don't know if we know where the hostages are being held. 1. 2, if indeed there will be significant killing of Gazans, the easiest targets are hostages. I say that respectfully. This is something we've never dealt with before. We've had, obviously, soldiers kidnapped before, whether it's Gilad Shalit or others, but not these kinds of numbers. And that's going to have to be a critical operational decision for the Israeli government. I know that our finance minister, who served probably for half a minute in the army, Smotrich, was very dismissive of possible harm that may fall upon hostages. Shame on him. A pox on his house. How we're going to negotiate, and I've just signed a petition while waiting for the show to begin. I just signed a petition for the release of the hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. Zaygazunt, that's fine. Because to hold women and children, innocent civilians hostage, absolute violation of international law every which way on Sunday. But that's something that Israeli decision makers are going to have to take into consideration. It's not akin to previous ground incursions because of the hostage situation. It's a game changer from a decision-making. One of you understands as a professor of decision-making leadership. This is an extraordinary challenge. I wish it were only a simulation and tabletop, but in real life, how you go about negotiating or making the operational decisions with hostages held at bay, women and children, innocent individuals like this gentleman's brother. I have no idea how you go about doing that when you have also an extreme right-wing government that is hell-bent on destroying Hamas. I don't know how you mix and match this together. So I said earlier, Netanyahu's gratuitous bluster, which is exhausting and utterly useless, I don't know how you negotiate this.
Okay. There's more after the break. Don't go away.